Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of How I Built This Birmingham Style. I'm Ron, CEO and founder of two consumer service brands located right here in Birmingham, Alabama. One is Two Maids and a Mop. The other is right behind me, Pink Zebra Moving. And today we have Will Akin. Will is a principal of Capital Growth Real Estate. He focuses on junior and big box disposition. We're going to have to learn what that means in a minute. Site selection for retailers, land brokerage, acquisitions. He's got a dozen plus years experience in the commercial real estate industry. Clients include everything from big names like Dave & Buster's, Tuesday Morning, Jack's Hamburgers, Taco Bell, all these folks around town as well, all the folks at the summit, all really cool things that I can't wait to hear about. Will's got a really fun story that starts a long time ago where he didn't have a ton of connections here, but he used his hustle to make it all happen today like it's going on for him. So Will, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for having me. All
right. So everybody loves, good old fashioned American success stories. And in my opinion, you're one of those folks. And we'll get to all the fun stuff that's happening today for you. But I'd love to kind of go back to those early days. I know you are a big fan of Alabama. And so I know it all started over in Tuscaloosa. And I've heard your story personally. So kind of take us back to those days when you were graduating from college and just trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life and how you ended up on the commercial real estate side.
Yeah, I was looking for an opportunity to be self-employed. I'm a typical type A, hard driven person like yourself and don't like to be told what to do. So I knew corporate America wasn't for me. And my dad had worked in corporate America here in Birmingham and was traveling while I was growing up and provided well for the family. But, he wasn't able to be at a lot of events for us children. And my mom raised us at home. And so I wanted to go into something where I had a lot of flexibility. And so I felt like real estate was something where I could build wealth and independence and really a cash flow machine is what I had in mind. And so I started interning for an apartment developer by the name of Phil Mulkey that I'd grown up in church with after my freshman year of college. And I already decided I was going to do finance and real estate and economics, and went ahead and started that and got my real estate license, I think in my junior year. And then just by chance, two guys from the shopping center group came to speak to a master's class, and we were invited to go to that in undergrad. And I went to it, and afterwards, two of us went up and spoke to them, and they mentioned having an internship opportunity. And so after my junior year, I got the opportunity to study abroad for about 5 weeks, and then went straight to the shopping center group and was able to work under three guys over there. We're longtime veterans in real estate, and they took me under their wing. And my first day, I actually toured with the founder and CEO of Jason's Deli in Montgomery and Tuscaloosa. And from that point forward, I fell in love with the business and the relationships and really felt at home, and actually did my first deal my senior year on campus. It was Badass Coffee that used to be on the Strip. So Greg Hess, the shopping center group, let me work that deal and actually paid me a fee. So that was my segue into the business.
That's so cool. So you're driving around town. Is Jason's Deli founder named Jason, I'm assuming?
No, he's an Italian. His first name might be Jason. I don't remember now. That was 2002. But I do know he has an Italian last name. I do remember that. And he's still in business.
So that had to be pretty cool. I mean, you're your early 20s. You're hanging out with all these folks that are in high finance and, look like they're rock stars. So
yeah.
Did the deal making of real estate, is that what drew you to it, or was there something else that excited you about the industry?
The deal making and just the competitive nature of it and opportunity to build a business. I had started cutting yards at 8 years old and did that all through high school. Even though my parents didn't make me work, and I was fortunate enough for my parents to pay my way through college, but I always had a job. Just liked making money and didn't like to sit around. So
that's what I think's always been really intriguing to me about anyone in real estate. You're really, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like you're only as good as your last deal, and so you're always, you can't sleep, you can't just go to rest on this. It's always something. So, tell us about how frantic those early days were as you were building it out. I know you started with that, with the property in Tuscaloosa, but how many deals, I guess, should I say, did you have over the next several years, and what was the lifestyle like?
I was fortunate. First off, I went into property and casualty insurance with Moulton Allen Williams out of college, because the shopping center group, I went to Atlanta to interview with their CEO, and I asked him for $24,000, $2,000 a month on a draw, because real estate's used to be a straight commission when I got in the business. Now they help the young people out, which is what they should do. But I asked him for $2,000 a month, and he's like, we don't pay draws, and I was going to pay it back. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to find a job with a salary. So I went to insurance, and that started in June of 2003. And then April, I called the shopping center group and like, I'm sick of insurance. It's boring. I just get used all the time for quotes. I want to go into real estate. And they said, well, we got more work than we can handle. It would be great. So I called my dad, asked him if I could borrow $2,000 a month and pay him back with interest. And he said, no problem. So I quit my job. I went home and told my wife that I'd quit my job, and she looked at me like I was crazy. She's making 30 grand a year as a Hoover special ed teacher. And, but that I was just lucky. Greg Hess and Hugo Eisen, the shopping center group, took me under their wings, Gary Farrow, and ended up doing 66 deals with them the first year. They were doing Costco, Ross, Dick's, GameStop, Logan's Roadhouse, just a Chick-fil-A, a slew of, the best of the best. And just really got lucky that I got connected with them. And like most things in life, you kind of have to get a break and get the right mentors. And they took me under their wing for many years, teaching me the business.
Gotcha. Wow. You hear about all those stories when people just sort of make a decision, and like in your case, did you call your wife, or did you literally told her when you got home?
I just told her when I got home. I felt convicted about it. I'm an impulsive person and pretty determined and hard-headed. So I was miserable in insurance. I mean, I was lucky enough to get a job out of school. But I just told her. And, I think we had 2 car payments, and we had just bought a house a month out of college out in Trussville. So we had a mortgage and 2 car payments. And I think we lived on $3,500 a month. We could pay our bills.
So for everybody listening, commercial real estate may be this like foreign language to a lot of people, because everybody thinks about residential real estate and buying and selling a home, but commercial real estate, while it's similar, is probably a lot different as well. And so before we start talking about how you ramped up and you started representing all these different brands that we all know about here around the Birmingham area, if you could, in like complete layman terms, like kind of talk to everybody about what a deal means, like what it means for the tenant, what it means for the property owner, what it means for the person like you. In some cases, you're the property owner and the property manager.
Yeah. So starting out in the business, I was in the brokerage side of the business. So there are 2 sides of that business. One is the tenant rep side of the business, and that's where you're representing retailers such as, in my case, Aldi Grocery, Aldi Foods, and Jack's Hamburgers are probably 2 of my biggest that I work with, and Taco Bell. And so they might have one real estate guy that handles multiple states, and they'll hire brokers like myself to be an outsourced real estate person. And we start by analyzing markets. We find gaps in where they need locations. And we drive the markets, we identify properties. And then once we get all the information gathered and packaged, we put them in our car and drive them around and present options, and they decide if they want to go there. And then we do the letters of intent and watch the deal all the way to closings, working with the attorneys, the engineers, the contractors, and corporate. And that's one side of the business. The other side is leasing and disposition, where we represent landlords, both ourselves, and then back then I was representing big landlords like the Brookhill Shopping Center on 280 when the Goodies and Circuit City shut down, and we would lease those. And then Bruno's was my biggest account when they shut stores down I guess starting in '05, where they went through a bankruptcy. And that was huge for us because we got to sell and lease all of those closed grocery stores. Mm. So that's kind of the two sides of the business until you get into development acquisitions. We'll talk about later.
It kind of sounds like hunting almost. Like it's
right.
It has a little bit of adrenaline to it, probably, because you're always on the lookout for the next deal. But once you get the next deal, you're on the lookout for the next tenant, and so it's just this cycle of hunting. It sounds like that. Probably, I know there's a lot of stress, but there's probably a lot of excitement that comes with it too.
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing I love about real estate is being able to go down the street and see projects that I put together. And that was the one thing I liked about real estate compared to insurance, was that I could actually see the finished product. I could see the people that are getting employed, property tax generation, the construction jobs you create, and just real satisfaction. And really more of a game. It's a gamble every day, and you never know what you're going to accomplish. You just have to keep pounding and pushing, and just like any business, eventually it breaks through.
Right. Well, let's talk about that breakthrough moment. Where we left off, you had left insurance. You kind of started out on your own. Dad sounds like he helped a little bit. There's always somebody, whether it's a family or friend, that helps folks that don't necessarily have the same level of access to capital as folks that grew up on Wall Street, do. So I'd love for people to hear. I know some of these fun stories, especially the Jack story. You've told me that a couple of times, and that's always fun to hear how you sort of landed that deal. But kind of walk us through the years and to get us to where we are today, and all the fun stuff happening around town that you represent.
Sure. So I ended up back to my dad. I ended up borrowing $16,000 from my dad, so 8 months of expenses, and paid him back, I think, within about a year and a half. So obviously without his help, I wouldn't be able to get in the business. And so I was very thankful for that. And I was just a broker, other than one little development deal I did in 2006, which, ended up making a couple $100,000, which beat losing money. But my big break into the acquisition development business was in 2009. Again, it was one of those Bruno stores that shut down in the Eastwood submarket of Birmingham, over on Montclair Road. And, it was the downturn. I was very lucky that I didn't own any real estate going into 08, 09. And we really ramped up acquisitions in 09. And we were able to pick up that Bruno's for $1.1 million, which is just unheard of. In fact, Jack's just bought the old IHOP in Eastwood for $1.2 or $1.25 million a month ago. So that gives you an idea. That's an acre. I bought 54,000 square feet on 7 acres for $1.1 million in 09. So I had 3 partners, my mentors I talked about, and we were able to go to the bank with their balance sheets. Again, I didn't have anything, but I was, 2011. So how old would I have been back then? Was that 10 years ago, 30 years old? So at that age, I didn't have any assets. We went to the bank, Southern States Bank. We borrowed all the money without any cash in the deal because one of my partners had such high net worth. And I signed on the guarantee, but the bank wasn't lending money to me. It was lending money to one of the partners. So we sold a Taco Bell and Bojangles, paid off the entire property. And then we built 600 mini storage units in that building. And we sold that property in 2015 for 4 times what we had in it and never put cash in the deal.
Holy cow.
And that was the deal that catapulted my career and gave me what I needed in terms of equity and debt, ability to borrow money to get into the acquisition development business, which is what I'm focused on now.
Man, that's like a movie, right? Like that had to be super exciting. I'm assuming whenever you finished the project, you and your wife, celebrated.
We celebrated, but it was a stressful time. We had to find what we call 1031 tax-free exchanges, and I ended up buying 3 properties out of that money to avoid paying taxes, and that was very exciting. And I was very blessed to find 3 good assets, 2 of which I still own, and that kind of just started building that cash flow machine.
So how do you find these deals? Like, anyone could have anyone could have made that deal back in those days, just like anyone can make a deal today. So what puts you in front of everyone else beyond just outbidding someone? What gives you that hunting mentality that others maybe lack?
I think a lot of it's relationships. So on that particular deal, I had a relationship with the broker that was listing that property for Bruno's. Martin Smith here in Birmingham was the listing agent. And, Martin trusted me and the guys in my office to execute and close. And one of the benefits we had was doing a quick due diligence and a quick close, just like when you're trying to buy a house in today's market. The cash buyer has the advantage, and we weren't paying cash, but they knew we could close. And so that gave us a big leg up on everybody else. And we moved quickly. The day it went on the market, we got an offer in. And it was just a relationship with him. And the other properties I ended up buying were relationships with other people. I bought an Aldi over next to Century Plaza Mall, where Amazon is now, because of my relationship with Aldi. Bought a shopping center in Boaz because my brother represented Harbor Freight and knew they wanted to go in the old Fred space. And bought a Ruby Tuesdays in Gardendale that closed because a friend of mine brought it to me and ended up leasing to Jack's on a ground lease. And so all three of those deals were relationships. And that's the key to our business.
I love the fact that you said that, because I think that extends beyond commercial. That extends to everything. Life, whether it's personal or professional, is all about relationships. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, that's something that you're going to have to succeed in if you want to be in business. Everyone watching this is either someone that owns a business or wants to own a business right here in Birmingham. And so anyone watching this, if you're looking like what's the secret, a lot of people think it's just having money or access to it. While that's important, there's a bunch of other things that are important too. Relationships probably are pretty high up there, if not the most important, because if you can't do it by yourself, there's no way you can do anything by yourself. And so start building those relationships now. Will started building those things before he had any money. It sounds like you built them when you're in college, just a college kid, when most people were thinking about football games and other things. You're out there shaking hands and, meeting folks that helped you later on in life. So build relationships. Speaking of relationships, I love your story. You probably don't think it's quite as romantic and cool, but of how you sort of entered into the relationship with Jack's was always real fun and exciting to me, because I'm that same guy. I'm an entrepreneur, got a lot of hustle in me. I love that. And this is going to sound crazy weird, but 2 Maids in the Mop is awesome. Things are going really well. We're all over the country now, winning all these ridiculous awards. I had a lot more fun early on because it required me to be more of a street hustler, and nowadays I'm more of a corporate CEO guy. And so I don't get to do all the pounding of the streets. And so I love your story about Jack's. So if you don't mind, share as much of it as you can, because I know there's some details you may have to keep out, but I'd love for everybody else to hear it, because what you did, I think everybody else watching this can do too, in whatever industry they're in.
Yeah, so Jack's, when I talked to them first, it was probably around 2008, and I got a call from their president, Charles Mizraini. That company at the time, up until 2015, was owned by Benny LaRussa, who's married into the Bruno supermarket family and had done really well with Jack's. Had bought out of bankruptcy in the mid-'80s. So at that time, I actually have notes. I take notes in my Outlook contacts when I talk to people, so that I can hold on to it. For one, I can't read my writing, but secondly, it's just easy to access. And they had 66 stores when I first talked to them. And over the years, Charles gave me an opportunity to first start out brokering their stores. And today they're up to 195 stores last time I checked. And I've been able to be a part of most of those stores, whether it was me doing it or me bringing other people in Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, in South Alabama to help them expand, and even putting people from our small group or other people I know into contact with them to help them grow their team. It's just been a great relationship. And at one point, they wouldn't pay any money for property back in the day, and so we found some property in the one in Gardendale I talked about, and then one in Montgomery and one in Rome, Georgia, that were too expensive for them to buy. And I said, well, Charles, let me buy them, and I'll lease the dirt to you at, an 8%, 7 or 8% return. And so he let me do that. And those deals ended up selling them a couple of years ago, and they were very profitable. Ended up doing one in Troy, Eufaula. I just sold Troy this summer. So that account is just proof that working hard for somebody, even as a broker, where you're not making as much money. I mean, you do well, but you're not taking it to the next level. I mean, a ground lease deal can make you what 10 brokerage deals do, and so just very fortunate to get in with them when they weren't really as well known. I mean, they were in very small towns, and wasn't like representing a McDonald's or somebody like that, but provided a really good opportunity.
So there was no like formula, there was no textbook that says, hey, later on in life in commercial real estate, there might be an opportunity for a young person to do something outside the box. You just you thought that off the cuff, and that allowed you to get in the door to create basically everything else that's happening today. So you just mentioned 195 stores, and you've been a part of almost all of them, all because you had this crazy idea that very few people probably thought of back in those days. So,
yep. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is getting business in the door. And fortunately, I've had more business than I can work. And so I've brought my brother and sister into the business, and several other young people. When I meet them and impressed with them, I've brought them into the account and have them work in different markets, and just really enjoy watching those people develop and provide a nice living for their family based on that one account. It's just neat to see those people and able to give them an opportunity, just like my mentors gave me an opportunity. So that's what really gives me satisfaction. Providing those opportunities.
Let's fast forward to where we are today. Commercial real estate's, you don't really necessarily know who's behind some of the brands or retailers when you visit or shop there, but a lot of properties around town you've been involved in some way. And so what's life like today? Like what are you doing on a regular basis? Like what's the day in the life of Will, and what all cool things are happening for you?
So I've pretty much, as of January this year, shifted totally out of the brokerage business, other than Aldi Foods. They don't do a ton of stores in Alabama, so I can still keep on them. And my sister, before she had a baby this week, was helping me on that account, doing a lot of the legwork. And so nowadays I'm buying property, I'm selling property. We've done about 75 Taco Bells across the country. I spend time running that program, and just buying shopping centers and land and closed bank branches. And we bought the vacant Rite Aid in Cava Heights and the Palisades in West Homewood. Those are two of my projects I've been working on for a while. And I think the Palisades might end up being my best deal, despite being the only deal my wife told me not to do in my career. And so I told her as soon as I can make some money on that, she's not getting any of it. So
let me know how that works out, by the way.
Yeah. So really today I'm kind of like you are. I'm not doing as much. I end up doing everything, managing my properties. I oversee the leasing. I do the financing. I do the legal. I have my brother, my sister, and another partner, Ray Jones, that are more people extroverted than I am, and they've been great to handle phone calls and really getting the people in the door. And I'm more of the detail behind the scenes guy, and I'd like to deal with the banks and the lawyers so, but these days just dealing with issues that come up, legal issues, tenants trying to not pay rent, and trying to decide how to handle people, knowing that these are real people on the other end, especially small business people that are lease space from us and not wanting to hurt them. And if they can't make it, working with them. And so every day is different. I never know what I'm going to be doing, but just trying to keep an eye on what I have and then be calculated on what we're selling. Right now, the market's crazy. I've been selling a lot just because the prices people are paying are just nuts. There's California and New York buyers coming in. So
cool. Well, you're the American success story, whether you want to believe that or not. I know you're a humble guy, but you build all this from the ground up, and it's truly organic, and had some help from dad and all it, but at the same time, it was all sweat equity that you poured into it, and you built something that everybody that's watching this wishes, they could reproduce themselves. And so I want to ask you a few questions before we keep, patting you on the back. And so going back to those early days, and I know you've started building out an organization most recently, and you've got employees that work for you and doing all the things that, in the old days you were doing. But in those old days, you were a lone ranger, so just like me, so if you could go back, I know it's kind of hard to look back to some of those years, but look back to those early days and just do something totally different. Like what would that one thing be today?
You mean career-wise or within my business?
Tactical, strategy, direction, anything.
I love what I do. So I have no regrets about the industry I'm in. I love it. It's a game, it's a gamble. I'm an adrenaline junkie and it's great every day. And I think the one thing I would have done different was probably starting to buy real estate earlier in my career. I did do one development deal in 2006 with my current partners, but really didn't start buying until 2009. You get so busy with the brokerage business and you're doing well and you're making money that you almost don't have time. You don't have enough time to slow down from the brokerage business to focus on buying property. And so I wish I could have bought property earlier. In the end, it worked out fine, and I own real estate, and everything's worked out. But the development and acquisition side of the business is what I love, and it would have been nice to start that a little bit earlier. But you don't know at the time, and you're afraid to take some of the risk.
Right.
So
I have another question. So everyone who starts a business, the folks that see all these folks like yourself who are doing so well, everybody wants to be that person, and for the most part, folks that are just getting started think that the folks that are doing really, really well in life, who build a business, who are very entrepreneurial, have just started here and went straight to the moon. But you and I both know there's a ton of curves, a ton of bad luck along the way, some good luck too. But there's a lot of crises basically that you have to navigate and manage. In your case, in the commercial real estate industry, I know of two that you just talked about: the 2008, 2009 banking, financial collapse, and then obviously most recently what we're dealing with still with COVID. What do you talk to us about some of those crises, how you handle those, and then how can that relate to somebody else that's starting a business? Because we don't know what their crisis is going to be. Nobody knows what tomorrow is. But what we do know is there will be something that challenges you. How do you deal with those, and how do you prepare for those even better?
So in our business, it's a very capital and debt intensive business. And, like I said earlier, going to 2008, 2009, I was lucky that I didn't have children at the time. My wife had a great job. And we had not adjusted our lifestyle to our income. And I've always tried to live well below, our income and keeping our debt very low. And that just provides a lot of flexibility and cash for deals and being able to say yes when there's opportunities, and for the banks to want to lend you money because they feel comfortable with you. So 2008 and 2009, while it was tough, my income went in half in 1 year. It was also a blessing because, like I talked about earlier, my brokerage business slowed down. But that allowed me opportunity to think and strategize and start really dreaming and finding acquisitions. And so while it was tough financially, I shouldn't say it was tough. We had not adjusted our lifestyle, so we were okay, but it wasn't fun. It's not fun for your income to go in half in 1 year. So that was when we were able to buy the Brunos and keep buying real estate from that point forward. And so that was kind of how that worked. And then through COVID, we probably have a couple hundred tenants collectively with my partners, and there were a lot of businesses that were struggling. Lucky for us, most of what I work on and own are daily needs retailers. So these are dollar stores, fast food, grocery, hardware. And so those businesses throughout the pandemic their sales were up. So while some of them tried to take advantage of the situation and get rent abatements, typically they were asking for at least 3 months of abatements, which we gave to some of them if they could prove that their sales were really down. We were fortunate. The banks were really good to work with. So we went straight to our lenders immediately, and they actually deferred loan payments with just one phone call. They would say, okay, we'll defer your loans for 3 months, no loans. And so that allowed us to weather that storm. Most of our tenants were able to pay, but the ones that weren't, because we weren't having to pay loan payments, it really didn't hurt us. And it was just more of a lot of time required to deal with that, with loan amendments and lease amendments and just the uncertainty. But today we've collected, everybody repaid pretty much by the end of the year when COVID hit, if they did owe any money. The ones that still owe us money, they would have owed us money whether COVID came or not, because their business just isn't doing well.
Right.
So,
all right. So one big question for you. Again, most people that I meet nowadays that want to be an entrepreneur are a little different than you and me. There's a lot of app-based, ideas. People want to become, famous billionaires in 2 months. And so apps typically seem like the easiest way to that type of success. But what you and I have built, and what a lot of other people around town that I've had a chance to interview have built, have been old school grassroots, from the bottom up. It wasn't big money that created success. It was hard work. But for someone out there watching, what can you, whether it's commercial real estate or any business, what are some things that you would recommend for them to do? Like, what traits should they have? What type of mentality and personality should they have? What should someone do that's just really dying to start a business and create the same success as you do?
I think the key is surrounding yourself with people that are hopefully smarter than you, or honest people that you can trust, and then having those same traits, because it takes a lifetime to build a reputation, but it takes one mistake to lose it, and might not be able to get it back. And so I think surround yourself with the right people. Anytime I talk to young people, I tell them, go talk to successful people and get their stories and find out what they did. And, I'm not good at training people. That's not what I do, but I'm happy to, recommend people for you to talk to and that are honest, good people that aren't going to take advantage of you and that are going to give you opportunities and not be overly greedy, maybe let you in on deals. So I think it's really about, you learn certain things in college, but really you're learning on the job. So, I know for you, Ron, you were able to build your business just based on, I think, an idea and not necessarily a mentor, and just hard work and determination. And for me, that wasn't the way I got to it. So I think there's all kinds of avenues, but it's really just, to be an entrepreneur, I think you've got to have a little bit of brain power, but you really just got to be able to be willing to work hard. In the early years, I was always at the office by 6:30. I might not be home till 8 until my wife told me 6:30 with my deadline every night to be at home. And so I did that. But it takes a lot of work. And I think the biggest challenge is trying to maintain a work-life balance. As entrepreneurs, we're workaholics a lot of times. And we've got to be careful, I think you work hard before you have your family and your children, and try to put in really long hours in. And hopefully by the time your family starts growing, you've built up a system or a company that allows you to have some free time to coach and spend time with the kids while they're still young.
Well, Will, you've built a great business. I know there's still a lot more in front of you. All the stuff that you've accomplished, I can't imagine the kind of sleepless nights probably some of those real estate deals probably created. But it's all worked out, and I know it's going to continue to keep working out for you and your family and your business. I think you have a beautiful family, and I love the fact that even though you guys are Alabama fans, we'll look past that you've been able to do all those things you just said. Live in this high risk, high energy world where you're building a business from the ground up, but being spiritually grounded and family oriented, and still being able to do all the things that you do with your children. It's a pretty big deal. And to me, it is the American success story. So congratulations on everything. I'd love for anybody watching this to have a chance to connect with you and learn from you. Maybe someone out there needs their own, mentor. So what can people do to have a chance to connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me on our website, or my number's 205-790-3424, and they can call me, or text is even better. Don't email me, because I got 40,000 unread emails. Because if I did my emails, I wouldn't be able to make a living. So text or call. I'm happy to meet anyone and talk to them. I've got the same struggles as every person, and past alcohol issues, like and addiction and everything else. And luckily, I've been able to get through those. But that's a lot of what I meet with people about, sharing my story of struggles like any of us have. And so whether it's that or talking about business, I'm always willing to sit down with somebody and talk about it.
Well, when you take over the world a few years from now, we'll bring you back on here and talk again. Does that sound like a deal?
I don't think I'm going to do that, but I think you will.
We'll see. We'll do it together. All right. Thank you, Will. We'll talk again down the road.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
You bet. Okay, Birmingham, you just heard it. You heard a story of how someone right here in our hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, built a business from the ground up into massive success. It was an inspiring story, so inspiring that I hope somebody out there uses it to build a business right now, today. If you know of anyone out there that has enjoyed a similar amount of success, please contact them. Tell them to listen to this interview, because we want to talk to them. The entire purpose of this podcast is to inspire entrepreneurs from the Birmingham area to do the same thing, what you heard today from this entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship, and I love this city of Birmingham, and I hope somebody out there is as inspired as I am. So thanks for listening today. I want to give a big shout out to Jeremy Allen. Jeremy's the guy behind the scenes doing all the technical work. He has been a godsend, and his creative energy is very inspiring as well. So Jeremy, thank you. And for everyone else, we'll see you again next time on How I Built This Birmingham Style.